All right, so at this point, you should have a project created called Test Project. So in this video, I'm going to go over the design part of AppInventor. So there's actually two parts to AppInventor. If you look up at the top right here, right underneath your email address, you'll see it says designer and it says blocks. So if you think kind of back to code.org, your designer is where you go to design your app. So again, when we did our first app and you added all those different screens and you add all those different buttons, that was the design view. So that's what we're in right now here in AppInventor. So that's what this video covers. My next video will cover the code, which they call blocks. And here is where you would code your program to do what you want it to do. So we'll get into that after. We're going to just focus on the design part. So over here on the left side, so pretty much the design view, it's split up into 5 parts. We have the palette, we have the viewer, we have our components, we have our properties, and then we have our media. All right, so we're going to start with the palette first over here. So the palette is anything and everything you can add to your app. So right here, all of these are considered under the user interface category. So just like in the app we did in code.org, we can add buttons, we can add switches, we can add text boxes, we can add labels. Then that's just in this category. So if you scroll down and you take a look at some of these, there's a bunch of other things that we can add as well. Now, some of these we're not going to be using, like for instance, Lego Mindstorms. If you're familiar with Lego Mindstorms, they're pretty much robots. So you can build robots and you can actually use this website and create an app that connects to Lego Mindstorms. What else do we have? We have connectivity. You can add Bluetooth stuff. We have sensors. So we're going to be using some things in sensors. So we can create an app that has a barcode scanner. We can create an app that has a pedometer. If you don't know what a pedometer is, it's something that keeps track of your steps. So like if you have an Apple Watch, you can keep track of your steps. So we can create pretty much any app that you pretty much have on your iPad or iPhone. We could probably create. It would just take us a very long time to do that. So the apps that we're going to create obviously are not as in-depth as the apps that you see on the App Store, but they will do some pretty cool things once we get them going. All right. So to start, we're just going to add a button to our screen. So the way you add something from the palette into the screen is you just click and drag it. So if I wanted to add a button, I click and hold my mouse. Now, again, if you're doing this on your iPad, you would do this with your finger and you would click and drag. But if you're doing this on your computer, again, which I recommend, you just want to take it and you can see there I have my button right here. And then I'm just going to drag it onto my screen. All right. And there it is right there. All right. So we'll go back and we'll talk about this in a second. So for right now, we're going to be done with our palette. We'll come back and we can add some other stuff. But just to kind of show you how it works, we're going to just start with a button. So then the next thing we have is our viewer. All right, our viewer is pretty much what our app would look like if this got installed on a phone or iPad. All right, so we actually in class here have tablets. I can kind of show you here. This is what they look like. Let me see if I can turn one on here. They're Android tablets, actually. All right, so all the apps that we do in this class work on Android devices. So unfortunately, if you're doing this at home and you don't have Android devices, you're not going to be able to test the apps that we do. You're going to be able to create them, and I'm going to be able to check to make sure that they are created correctly. But unfortunately, you're not going to be able to test them because you do need Android devices. Now, they are in the works of coming out with a iPad app, but it has not been released yet. So hopefully, if that gets released here shortly, we can download it from the app portal, and then you can also test the apps on your iPad. But as of now, they're just for Android devices. So if you have an Android phone or your parents have an Android phone, you can test the apps that you create. All right, so that's kind of what the viewer is. Now, your components right here, your components are the things that you have in your app. So right now in our app, we have 2 things. We have a screen, which every app has, and then we have a button. That's the app that the component that we just added. All right. So as we get through to our more complicated apps, you're going to have more and more components in this section once we start adding more things. But right now, we're just kind of testing things out, so we're okay just having two things. Down here in the media. So what do you think the media section is for? So it's actually for pictures and sounds and music and things like that. So if we wanted to add a picture into our app or a sound effect into our app, so just like we did with the code.org app, when you clicked a button, it made a sound. This is where we would go to add those sounds. All right, but for right now, we're not going to add anything because, again, we're just kind of testing things out to make sure it works. And then finally, you have the properties. All right, which I'm going to move my little picture here so you can kind of see. All right, now if I click my screen and my button, you're going to notice that the properties change. All right, this is the screen one properties, and this is the button one properties. All right, so screen one is the screen, and these are all the things we can change about the screen. All right, so we're not going to test all of these out, but we're just going to test out some easy ones. For example, like background color right here. All right, it says background color, and right now it says default. So if you click that and pick a color, you'll notice your screen on your virtual phone here will change to blue, because that's what I picked. Green, orange, whatever. So pick a color, just so you can kind of see how it works. Right here where it says background image, we can actually add a background image. So we could put a picture as our background. Just like you would with an iPhone, you can change the wallpaper. We can do the same thing here in our app, okay, which we're not going to do right now. What else do we have, really? So as far as screen goes, we don't really need to know all of this other things right now, with the exception of your title. All right, so right now, title says screen one. So if you look right here, it says screen one as well. So you never want to leave your title called screen one, because whoever's using this app, let's say you're testing the app and you want to know what the app is called, we don't want to have this called screen one. So since this app is not called screen one, we're going to erase that. We're going to call it test project. And we're going to put a space in there. And notice right up here at the top, it says test project. All right, so again, if you're watching this video, you should be doing what I'm doing right now. And if you're not, what I would do is pause the video, get into AppInventor, and make sure you're doing this as I do it. So again, you're not confused. It's going to be very difficult if you watch the whole video and then you go back and try to do everything. You may get confused. You may forget some things. So you want to try to do what I'm doing as I'm doing it. All right, so as far as the screen goes, that's really all we need for right now. We'll come back when we do our other apps and take a look at more stuff. All right, now we're going to look at your button. So now that we changed our screen properties, we now want to change our button properties. So first at the top right here, it says button, background color. So we can change the color of our button. So again, I'm going to change it to blue. Notice my button is changed to blue. Then we have font bold or font italic. If you want your font to be bold, check it. Font italic, check it. Again, if you want to leave it unchecked, that's fine. Font size, that is how big the text is. Right now, we have it set to 14. Type in another number. Doesn't have to be the same number I put. I'm going to put in 50. All right. As you can see, the button gets bigger because the text is getting bigger. So you want to be careful when you change your font size, because if you make it too big, I just made it to 100. Notice how my button now is cut off because my text is way too big for the button. So you want to make sure that it's big enough that you could read, but not too big that it gets cut off. So I'm going to try 20, and 20 is pretty good. Next, we have our typeface, and that is how the font looks. And you can mess with those, sans serif, serif, monospace, just to kind of see what they look like. All right, so height and width should be relatively simple to understand. It is the height of your button. It is the width of your button. So we're going to change the height first. We're going to click in there, and we're going to go where it says pixels. So we're going to specify how big in pixels our button is going to be. So I would like you to type in 200. Press OK. So now our height of our button from the top to the bottom is now 200 pixels. That is a 200 pixel high button. And now our width, we are also going to change to 200 pixels. I'm going to press OK. Now we have a 200 by 200 pixel square as our button. Now, if we wanted to, we could put an image on our button, which we're not going to do right now. We can change the shape of our button if you want to do that. Rounded, rectangular, oval. Then we have the text for the button. So the text for the button is the text on the button. We never, ever, ever want to leave it text for button 1 because that is not telling us anything that this button does. You always want to change the text of your button to something that makes sense. So I'm going to tell you what to change it to. So we're going to have this button. We're going to change the text to change screen color. Change screen color. Because what we're going to do in our next video is we're going to program this button that when we click it, it's going to change the color of the screen. So right now, if you look at my screen, my color is orange and your color is whatever you picked. So what we're going to do is we're going to program that button that when we click it, it's actually going to change the color of the screen to something else. All right, we're not going to program that yet. We're going to program that in the next video. So we're going to go, last thing we can change is the color of our text. So right now we have black. I'm going to change it to red so we can see that. All right, so the next video you're going to watch is the coding video. So the coding video will show you how to code whatever you added. So we added a button. So our next video is going to show you what that code looks like and walk you through the steps to do that so you can get used to doing that. All right, so again, you can pause this video, rewind it, do whatever you want, but make your project, your first project, look very similar to this, especially if you're at home. So then you can go ahead and watch the next video. All right, if you guys have any questions, shoot me an email. Later.